A top college football analyst was just accused of throwing shade at new Miami starting quarterback Carson Beck. But I didn't take it that way. In fact, I see nothing but good news here for the Miami Hurricanes.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. You need one right now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. On this loaded episode, good reviews from coaches and players after Thursday's practice. Miami's defense is clicking, quote unquote clicking, and we'll explain why. Also, I've got a list of some under the radar good performers, really good performers in spring football that we're not talking about and probably not talking about enough. But we have to start with this. So I had a lot of people tagging me on social media the last couple of days, taking offense to something that college football analyst and former Georgia Bulldogs star David Pollack. Now, the fact that Pollack played at Georgia and is a UGA guy should tell you something about the perspective of where he's coming from. He's really rooting for Gunnar Stockton, the quarterback in Athens who's replacing Carson Beck full-time. He believes in Gunnar Stockton. And, of course, part of Pollack's analysis on what Stockton is going to do this coming season at UGA, it's hard for him to analyze that without comparing what Carson Beck just did at Georgia. So, here's a comment that seems to have rubbed some Miami fans and some Carson Beck fans the wrong way. So Pollack was on the See Ball, Get Ball podcast, and he said this about Gunnar Stockton compared to Carson Beck. Quote, I think Gunnar Stockton will have a better year this year than Carson Beck had last year. Okay. By the way, shout out to my guy, Tony Thomas from Athlon Sports, was the first to bring this quote to my attention. So think about what David Pollack just said there. Gunnar Stockton will have a better year this year than Carson Beck had last year. Guys, I don't take that as some awful indictment on Carson Beck like some of you did. I mean, these clickbait aggregators out there who are like throwing shade at Beck, they're so desperate to share this stuff with a negative spin. Get out of your mom's basement and touch some grass. Okay, so Pollack says Stockton, in his mind, going to have a better 2025 at Georgia than Beck had 2024 at Georgia. I'll explain why I'm not even sure if that's going to happen, but, here's what Pollack didn't say. He didn't say Carson Beck isn't good. He didn't say Beck sucks, nor did he flat out say that Stockton is better than Carson Beck. Because, folks, there were plenty of reasons. We all talk about the dip in statistics, right? Beck was right near the top of every passing category in 2023. His numbers, while still very good in 2024, took a dip from around 3,900 passing yards in 23 to the 3,400-yard range in 2024. Wasn't a Heisman finalist like people thought he might be. But there were plenty of other reasons why his numbers took a dip. I think you have to look at Georgia's offense, any offense in the country, by the way. This is not a Georgia-specific thing. You have to look at Georgia's offense last year as an ecosystem and not just one player or one quarterback. So questions I would have on UGA as to how much Stockton can thrive there this year compared to what Beck did last year. Has Georgia improved their consistency at receiver from last year? They literally led the nation in drops last season. You think that helped Carson? Nope. Can Georgia fix the offensive line that took a big dip last year compared to the season before? Right now, I know it's spring. It's early. I've read some UGA stuff. I'm not hearing great reviews about their O-line depth this spring, but there's plenty of time to get guys healthy and stuff before the season starts. Other part of it is fit with your offensive coordinator. And I'll tell you why I think Carson Beck can fit very well and is fitting very well for what he's able to do right now with Shannon Dawson's offense. But Is it possible? I think it is possible that Gunnar Stockton can be a better fit in Mike Bobo's offense in Georgia than Carson Beck was. Beck was a better fit with Todd Monken, the previous OC. That's the one who developed him originally at Georgia. And so, okay, from all this that David Pollack had to say and all the fallout that comes after that, let me kind of give you my own version, like the Miami perspective compared to Pollack's Georgia perspective. So, okay, he says Gunnar Stockton's going to have a better year at Georgia this year than Beck had last year. I think Carson Beck's going to have a better year at Miami this year than he had at Georgia last year. Number one, strength of schedule. I know we complain sometimes about all the SEC fans, like it's the only thing that matters. It just means more, but we all have to admit, I mean, going up against ACC defenses for the most part compared to Beck's schedule last year, because Georgia not only had an SEC schedule, they had one of the toughest SEC schedules. They went up against 8 of the top 30 defenses in the country. So 8 of their 12 games were against top 30 defenses last year. That's not going to be the case this year for Miami. Does Miami face some good defenses? Sure. You've got a great one right off the bat against Notre Dame. That's going to be baptism by fire for Beck and everybody in Miami's offense. But the strength of schedule is going to be more friendly to Carson Beck putting up numbers in the passing game. Georgia went up against an unusually high amount of great defenses last year. Number 2 for me, and this ties into offensive line, of course, but the running game. Did you realize, maybe you didn't know this, the Georgia Bulldogs last year, with Carson Beck at quarterback, Georgia ranked 102nd in the nation in rushing. How is that helping your quarterback? Miami, meanwhile, we got to see it on the field, of course, but the running game was very good last year. Miami was 31st in the nation last year, despite more of a pass-heavy attack. 71 spots better than Georgia. Miami was 6th in yards per carry last year, which is obviously way higher than Georgia, and the Hurricanes have a really highly touted 1-2 punch this year. Mark Fletcher, and Jordan Lyle are going to lead the charge, and behind one of the better looking offensive lines in the country. And then number 3, I already mentioned this on the Georgia side, but what about dropped passes? Obviously, this is something we need to see Miami prove this on the field, that they're going to be a lot better at that than Georgia was last year. But the Bulldogs didn't help Carson Beck by leading the nation in drops. Will Miami be better in this regard? I think so, and I hope so. You know, Miami's receiver core is young, with a couple of exceptions. We got C.J. Daniels back practicing now and doing very well. But big thing for me, and I loved a comment that JoJo Trader made a couple of weeks ago when he was talking to the media, you know, watching Beck film from Georgia last year. It said he saw some drop balls, JoJo said, from Beck's guys that he would have caught, in his words. So show it to me on the field, fellas. But okay, and the other part of it, yeah, I mentioned, you know, Beck not maybe being the best fit in Mike Bobo's offense at Georgia, which could be a real thing. This is something that Smoke from the Ultimate College Football Show on 24/7 said about this. He said, Mike Bobo is a good coordinator if you have his type of player within his offense to function. Carson Beck wasn't that guy, he said. He's a pocket guy. Pro-style offense that predicates a lot of information for the quarterback to process, to get the ball out of their hands into the right playmaker's hands, but also has a functional, dominant running game to use play-action passes to win games. So the idea is, you know, Bobo's offense needs quarterbacks who are structured, run-heavy type of guys who thrive on play-action. Beck, they say, is not that. But I do believe that Carson Beck has found a Miami offense that Shannon Dawson can and will tailor to his strengths, because we've seen Dawson already change Miami's offense from the, not that we want anything like this again, but from the Tyler Van Dyke offense to the Cam Ward offense. I feel Shannon Dawson is a lot more adaptable, and I think that's a big part of the reason why Carson Beck chose to come to Miami. So all this to say on the Beck matter, you think about all of the conclusions that people are coming up with. Why did his numbers dip in Georgia? Why is Gunnar Stockton going to be better this year? Folks, this worked out so well for the Miami Hurricanes because all of those factors, with Carson Beck ultimately making a decision, right? Because 3 decisions he could have made. Could have gone pro and he would be drafted, not as high as he wants to be, but he would be drafted if he'd gone pro this year. Could stay at Georgia, or he could look for a different situation. And when we talk about those factors, potentially not being the best fit in the offense of the current Georgia coordinator. That's a big thing, right? Any concerns about the offensive line, the running game not being up to par? Carson Beck is trying to find the same sort of opportunity that Cam Ward found at Miami. I see an offense that is adaptable. I see an offense where I'm going to be protected. I see one that's going to complement me and take pressure off of me with a strong running game. That gives, and also, going up against not as many great defenses as I went up in my previous spot. This is going to give me, and I'm talking as if I'm Carson Beck. It's going to give me the opportunity to raise my draft stock and hopefully try to win something. And this is not to say that Georgia could win the national championship for all I know. I'm not saying Miami's going to do more winning than Georgia, but I think Beck sees Miami as a better fit for him personally and also a spot that gives him an opportunity to win. So this worked out in Miami's favor, folks. If not for all of these factors, that led to, Beck not being the perfect match made in heaven with Mike Bobo and UGA, all of this resulted in Miami having the opportunity to go into that transfer portal and snatch one of the top players available. Let's make the most of it. We'll talk about under the radar performers, some names, including some really young guys who have started to step up in practice that are worth talking about. Who's shining at Green Tree? You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. I know this, guys. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. Guys, as a parent, I want to make sure my family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives me that peace of mind. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company are not available in certain states. Price subject to underwriting and health questions. My friends, we are also proudly brought to you by Prize Picks. I've been going ham on the NBA picks recently. I mean, I know the Heat lost to Memphis, but 6-game winning streak. They trounced Boston the other day. I'm having fun again with my Prize Picks selections in basketball, and baseball season is now in full swing. There's no better way to get in on the action than Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, so easy, guys. It's insulting how easy it is. Insulting in a good way. You pick more or less on at least 2-player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Takes me less than 60 seconds to make my selections, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. Guys, this week I'm picking Aaron Judge for more than 1 home run and Shohei Ohtani for more than 1 stolen base. You make these selections, it's that easy. I always love taking advantage of Taco Tuesday, where Prize Picks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I will have a new episode tonight. It's going to be all about the Final Four. You got the Duke Blue Devils taking on Houston, Auburn taking on Florida. Championship game coming up on Monday. This is just a great time of year to be a sports fan. And, of course, here on Locked On Canes, we are always talking some football. All right, so we move on from Carson Beck. And by the way, an update on him. He still is not apparently back to full clearance and throwing, but that will hopefully happen very soon. Like, the expectation is that Beck is getting very close. He's doing a good job staying around the team, engaged with the team. He is practicing. He's working out all the things that he is physically cleared to do. He has been working with his receivers. We heard some, different discussions from guys like Ray Joseph and JoJo Trader and CJ Daniels about the way Beck is working with these guys. And so, yeah, hopefully that clearance for him comes very soon, because we got some work to do before, all these nice things that I said about Carson Beck and Shannon Dawson's offense. We got to see him prove me right out there. Okay, now here's some under the radar performances, guys who looked good this week in practice, who are starting to really step up. This one's going to make a lot of us happy because this young man is a friend of the show. We had him on several times when he was in high school, leading up to his Miami signing. Luke Nickel, freshman quarterback Luke Nickel, had his best day so far on Thursday. His best day, sharpest day throwing the football. And remember, this is an early enrollee freshman, so early growing pains for him were to be expected, right? Like after the first couple of weeks of spring ball, a lot of people on Kane's social media are like, "Oh, well, what's going on? Is Luke doing well? Is he not doing good? Is he going to be a bust?" I don't know how you can even throw the B word out there like 2-3 weeks into the first spring for an early enrollee, but seems like Luke is really starting to click out there. We're going to use that word click a lot today. I thought David Lake at Inside the U described it well when he said, it looks like things are starting to slow down for Nickel. And listen, if you watch Luke Nickel in high school, tremendous team and a tremendous unbeaten run that extended almost 2 years and 2 straight championships at Milton High School in Georgia. That kid is a dog, and he's a competitor. He's a gamer. He can make pretty much every throw. Is he a perfect quarterback at this stage? Obviously not. You need to be developed at the college level, but I've got high hopes for Nickel, and Thursday was apparently the best practice he's had yet. Another true freshman who I keep noticing this guy. He keeps turning heads, and I'm happy to say it. Dante Simpson. I'm so happy to talk about him because I will admit this is someone who was probably way too under my radar. I mean, shame on Donno for not hyping up Dante Simpson enough coming out of Chaminade. True freshman, early enrollee defensive lineman. He continues to make really impressive plays and turn heads in one-on-one drills. So I think this guy is going to end up Dante Simpson. Of course, we're always in, and I know the truth teller is listening to this and he's pumping his fist because we're talking defensive linemen and defensive tackles. We got to be stacking those rooms for the future. And so, Simpson, we'll see how much he gets on the field as a true freshman. But even if he doesn't, it seems like the young man is developing, making the most of his opportunities, and he's going to be one for the future. Another player I wanted to bring up who's getting very good reviews under the radar, third-year offensive lineman Tommy Kinsler, Big Bruno. Been described as probably the most consistent and possibly the best of the backup offensive linemen. So even if you don't project Kinsler to be in the top 5 necessarily, because it's seem to have a pretty good idea who Miami's top 5 offensive linemen are going to be. Alex Mirabal rotates his group. If Kinsler is the best of the rest, and he's up there, getting some starting caliber snaps as maybe a backup guy, he's still going to play this year. And of course, it happened last year. Multiple offensive line injuries. You knock on wood, you never want to see it. But last year, we lost Jalen Rivers for a big chunk of the season. Markel Bell stepped up and did a very good job and got better and better throughout the year at left tackle. I mean, Miami needed the depth when Ryan Rodriguez started the season as the starting left guard, gets injured in the first game. Miami has guys, the Matthew McCoys, to carry it the rest of the way. Someone else that I've actually been hearing some okay stuff about, seem to get good reviews from his coaches, is the Pancake Honcho, Samson Okunlola. I hope he can start to really break out in his third year. But Kinsler is the guy who's getting some of the top reviews right now. And I want to add this to defend myself a little bit, because we did an episode on Wednesday that was very centric on wide receiver CJ Daniels. He made his practice debut on Tuesday. I think he was a little bit limited on Tuesday, but made his team group practicing debut, practiced a lot more on Thursday as he's recovered from his injury coming out of LSU. And, I talked on Wednesday, and I stand by. I do not regret anything I said on Wednesday, and I stand by all of it when I talk about how important I think CJ Daniels is going to be for this team this year. Proven veteran talent at receiver who I think can collaborate with Carson Beck to put up big numbers this year. And also, the impact that CJ is going to have here goes just beyond the on-field production, because he's by far the oldest wide receiver in that room, and his leadership traits have been noticeable. He gets guys together, private meetings, throwing sessions, takes a lot of initiative. He's an alpha type A guy, which I think is exactly what Miami needs when the rest of your receiver room is very young. And I am proud to say that Daniels is getting very good reviews for his practicing this week. Smooth, mature route runner, reliable hands, made a good contested catch in red zone drills on Thursday. So, listen, Miami, obviously over the years, has had some transfer receivers come in and have a big impact. I mean, Charleston Rambo a few years ago, KJ Osborne. I hope CJ can end up being another one of those guys, that he can really elevate the talent of this room, and he's practicing well so far. Coming up next, here's why things are really starting to click with the defense. Keeping in mind, a lot of new coaching there, a lot of installs, right? We're 4 weeks through spring practice, which means the first 4 weeks for your new defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, both of your new defensive backs coaches. Heatherman's also the new linebackers coach. You've got a new defensive line coach. So we'll explain why things are really clicking now for the D. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new Locked On Canes. How do I have so much pep today? I think 5-hour energy. Yeah, we had that daylight saving sneak up on us recently. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-hour energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, oh yeah, that's going to be us on Saturday and Monday night. You're squeezing in an extra round of golf after work, just trying to keep up with your day. 5-hour energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Folks, with longer days, I love getting outside. I took a long walk yesterday. Tropical Burst is one of my go-tos for that quick boost. Whether I'm at a game or traveling, 5-hour energy is easy to grab and it keeps me feeling refreshed. So head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango, which is delicious. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Or if you need one right now, grab a 5-hour energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store because they are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5-hour energy. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, it's got to be Bracket Breakdown.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
So these are encouraging words from head coach Mario Cristobal after Thursday's practice, specifically about the defense. I'd say today was really big overall for the defense. So much of it came together today, he said. Whether you install something new, you see flashes, and then you have head-scratching moments. Then you see some forms of progress, he said. You can see the guys communicating really, really well, and we have moved fast, Cristobal said. Today, we looked like a day where we played to our ability. Guys weren't stuck and paralyzed with confusion. They were able to just cut it loose. You love to hear that because, again, and first of all of that stuff he described of like processing things and not being able to cut loose, they played like that the entire season for the most. A couple, like they probably their best defensive game was the first game of the year against Florida, and then things were a little confounding after that, right? With confusion, lack of communication. So I'm not going to overreact to a really good review from a singular practice, but if these guys are actually getting on the same page, and if they're showing an ability to fit, process, and just work better in Corey Heatherman's defense than they did in Lance Guidry's, and you're already able to get some of this progress in April with a new defensive coordinator, early April, I should say, then I'm going to take that as a positive sign, because I think we can all agree. And I know, this is not a black and white statement, because there were definitely some problem depth areas on Miami's D last year. So there are personnel reasons why it didn't to go along with the scheme reasons. But I think it's fair for me to say that Miami's defense did not play up to their talent level last year. They didn't. Like, there's more talent on the field, better talent on the field than some of those results that they produced, giving up, over 30 points in just about every ACC game that they played last year. It's not Miami football. And so, yeah, was the talent perfect? Absolutely not. And that's one of the reasons why Miami went out and they brought in 5 new defensive backs in the transfer portal. Like, obviously the talent wasn't up to where Cristobal wanted it to be, but I still thought the talent was probably better than the results that were produced on that side of the football. And the communication part of it, that's been a really big theme here. Keem Mezador, who's a senior leader on Miami's defense, on the defensive line, said, we are communicating a lot better. Guys are starting to build a lot more chemistry, he said. We basically run through plays every single day. So the biggest thing is communication. Guys are starting to play together a little bit more, he said. So Mezador, he said the defense is pretty simple. I think everybody is doing a pretty good job on it. Everything changes off formations and shifts, stuff like that. It's really just communication that is the big thing. And, this is the second time Mezador has spoken this spring. And I can remember the first time, it was after the first or second spring practice, he said to us, I love this defense. Like, I love Corey Heatherman's scheme. Like, he couldn't stop talking about how much he loved it, and he doubled down on it. So also, I don't think I've ever heard this comparison before. I am about to tell you what Corey Heatherman's defense and French toast have in common, because this is apparently now a thing. Mezador said he loves the defensive system. It's simple. I get to play inside and out, he said. I'm so happy. It's like waking up in the morning to your mom making French toast or something. I love it. You get freedom. You get a bunch of freedom inside and out. It allows me to play, to rush the quarterback, to do what I'm good at. And yeah, giddy up. And this is another reason why we're so looking forward to that spring game coming up. And by the way, let me say this. I think I'm impressed with this. I know it's not the biggest venue, Cobb Stadium. I think there's like 4,000 or 5,000 people that are allowed in there. That's where they had the spring game last year, and the atmosphere was great. Like, I thought they did a fantastic job out there. I know it's a small venue, but the general tickets went up for sale yesterday. I think they're free, but you still had to like get yourself a ticket. They went up on the site yesterday, and they sold out almost immediately. I don't know if it was a matter of hours or even minutes that the general spring game tickets were off the board. And, I'd say that's a good thing. I do feel bad for like a couple of my listeners were like, Donno, I tried to get spring. They were sold out by the time I got there. I can't go to the spring game, so I'm sorry. It should be on ACC Network for us all to watch. But yeah, I mean, and also keep your eye. I mean, if anybody for whatever reason maybe decides they don't need their tickets, maybe some more will come up. But I thought that was pretty cool that the spring football tickets were off the board almost immediately. Something else from Mario Cristobal I want to add. We talked about Cristobal's take on the defense. Something he said about the offense. I wanted to make sure we brought this up today because this directly ties in with a conversation that we had with our recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, yesterday, right? We were talking about all of Miami's offensive line targets. Miami just landed J.J. Sparks. Miami landed Joel Irvin over the weekend. A few weeks ago, Miami landed Ben Cogden. So it's only early April, and Miami already has 3 verbally committed offensive linemen. And, Brian was saying, hey, maybe they'll look to take around 5 in this cycle. Folks, I think they're going to try to take more than 5. I think they're going to try to. The number that I threw out there yesterday was as high as 7. And I said this before Mario Cristobal talked about it yesterday. So Cristobal said, we may lose, he said, 5, 6, 7 guys from our offensive line this year, coming off of this year. So we need to sign 5, 6, 7 guys. And that's conservative, he said. So more reinforcement. And I know every time Miami lands an offensive lineman, because they have so many offensive line targets, like people are like, wait, do we still want Ryan Moret? Do we still want Cannon Pickett? What's going on with Brett Colajay? Does this mean we're not landing any of these guys? They got 3 on the board. Folks, they may be going for 4 more. So all of these offensive lineman targets that we talk about, that, of course, big-time names at tackle as well. 5-star Kenai Pepe, very much a target. 5-star Jackson Cantwell, very much a Miami target. the approach does not seem to have changed with any of these other guys because Miami is looking to bring in a massive offensive line class this year. And it makes sense. You go by the numbers. I mean, James Brockermeyer is going to be off to the NFL. CeCe, he's a junior, but CeCe's so good, he'll probably be off to the NFL. Inez Cooper, probably off to the NFL. Markel Bell, probably off to the NFL. And maybe a couple of other guys. Ryan Rodriguez is going to be out of eligibility, so he'll be out next year. So, yeah, you're losing a ton of offensive linemen. You got to bring in a massive class this year. I want to thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're going to have another episode today. We're going to break some things down with the post-cast king, Jim Greasehopper. We like to do a little Friday tradition with our guy Grease. So we'll be talking to him later on today. And we'll talk to all of you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.